Okay. Hi, guys, and welcome to the India Access News Show for July. Yay! And today we have the very beautiful Diva with us, and we're going to talk about acknowledging our capacities.
Yay!
Yay!
Woohoo!
Diva, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Hi, everyone.
I'm gonna butt in and introduce Diva for like a minute. So I don't know how many of you know Diva, but I've actually had the pleasure of knowing her from really, really early on in Access, to be very honest. I met her within a few months of actually joining Access in London. I traveled to do a body class that she was hosting a class for, and I got to see Diva in her element, and something that really struck me. I've come a long way, and I know you have too, Diva, since 2013, which is when we met.
Olden days.
In the olden days, but one thing that really struck me about you was you were always you, even then. You were always you. Like you always, the way you carried yourself, your confidence, you're totally at ease with who you are, your capacities, your potencies, your abilities, and I'm sure that took work. So I just want to acknowledge that about you. Diva, for those of you who don't know, does the X-Men. I mean, sure you got emails, but she's truly her X-Men herself, and I find very few people who are at that level of comfort with their X-Men capacity. So I can't wait to talk more about this topic with you.
Thank you. What can I tell you guys? What would you like to know?
I'd like to say something also, just a little bit. Whenever I look at you, if there was anything called the potency of elegance, it's just, oh my God. It's
Thank
amazing.
You,
Totally saying that.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's so funny because oh, hi, sweetie. We were just in the Being UCF class in Paris, and it was quite full on. And it's so funny because it's when things are so full on that it's really easy to actually use your X-Men capacities, which I'll talk about more as well. But when you have nothing going on, it's actually often harder to use your capacities because you just don't have anything to use them for. So when I started Access about 9 years ago, I used to, I didn't come to Access because I had a problem. I actually came to Access because I required $1 million for my first startup company. And I've been working in economic intelligence up until that point. So I came from a very corporate background. And I met this lady online, and I was living in Peru at the time, and she said to me, this could really help you in your life. And at that point I was just like, yeah, right, nothing can help me. I'm like this crazy maniac with 1 million thoughts in my head. I can never turn off my brain. I can't focus the way other people do. Everything for me is so intense, whereas everything for everyone else is just la la la. And she's like, no, really, it could help you. And I was like, really? I was like, is it going to help me get $1 million for my first startup? Thinking she was going to say no. And then she was like, well, it might do. And I was like, okay. I was like the worst client ever. You did not want me as a client at the beginning. I was so cynical. And for 3 weeks, I used the tools. And then by the end of the 3 weeks, I was offered $1 million. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll look into this. So that's how I started. But I wanted to say that because what if you don't have to choose any of this because you have a problem? What if you can choose any of your capacities because you would just like to create something greater? Or maybe just because you want to have a bit more fun. Or maybe because you just want to have a bit more of the elegance of creation, which is where you put in the minimum amount of energy required at the right time to create the greatest result. And that's, to me, what X-Men is about, in part. It's about a million things, but yeah.
That is beautiful.
यही chapter मेरे वो लिए थे ना आगे
So we do have a couple of questions already that were emailed to us. So I'm going to start with the
Cool.
first one. Palomi has a question. How do we make teachers understand about kids with ADHD, as they say we don't have time to give them personal attention in school? And how do you teach them to perform and read academically? We don't have a point of view, but the school really does.
Yeah, no, and the school really will have a point of view because not because they're like evil and mean, but because it's their job to be right. And so they often feel like they're doing things in the wrong way and they're not succeeding with these kids that have been labeled, or even if they haven't been labeled. So first of all, acknowledge that the teachers' defenses are probably up. They have their barriers up because they're being told by the system, by the people around them, that they're not doing a good enough job, and they have no idea how to handle these kids. Like, they really don't. So, oh, and now my brain is bleeding out of my head. Good. Thanks.
Devika, video okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on
Imagine
it.
if I died from that. You guys would be like,
Totally
Diva
possible.
died from a Zoom that we did. So one of the things, so let me just backtrack then before I start this whole thing. I don't know if all of you have heard about X-Men, how much you know, how much you don't know. One thing that I would suggest, number one, go to accessconsciousness.com/X-Men. There are resources on there. There are videos, there are articles, there are a million things. Start informing yourself about that stuff. I think there's someone who's typing. So you guys just, if you're doing stuff on your computer, if you could just hit mute, that would be great, because I also have ADD, which means that if you're typing, I'm going to be so distracted. Thanks.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's backtrack. I wanted to ask you something else before we got into this question. It was simply as something simple as, how do you even know you're an X-Men? Like, what are the signs? What are the telltales? X-Men.
Okay, cool. So I love how we're jumping around because this is like the X-Men brain.
Exactly.
and it's perfect. So I'm going to backtrack even before that, and then we'll get to this, and then we'll get to the question you just mentioned, Isha. So basically, X-Men, they're the evolution of the species. So they are everything that we will one day get to be if we stop being stupid. Which means if we stop cutting off our awareness, it doesn't mean you are a stupid person. It just means all the places you cut off your awareness. So to us, like, to access X-Men, don't really have a problem. There's nothing to fix. And that is probably one of the biggest things to be aware of. And it's one of the hardest things for other people to get. So number one, please ask, what can this person receive when you're speaking with them about X-Men, whether it's in a school or anywhere else, because chances are they probably can't receive that just yet, okay? But if there was nothing to fix, then what could you receive from the X-Men? So I don't know if you guys have seen the X-Men films or the comic books, but they all talk about these, well, they don't talk about, they are based on these characters that have these amazing superpowers. But the characters themselves think that they're messed up, and they think that they're losers. They think that they have to, I'll turn my volume up. They think that they have to, oh, sorry. I can only turn my volume up so much, because then if there's any background noise, it like blasts into my brain, which is lovely and everything. But and so so they think that they're messed up and that they have to hide from the world. And that's really what the X-Men are about. They all have these amazing capacities, but they are told that they're wrong. They're told that they don't fit in. And because they don't fit in, nobody knows how to deal with the capacities. So, you know, in the X-Men movies, if you have somebody who walks through walls, everyone's going to freak out and tell them, just stop walking through the walls. Not because it's wrong to walk through walls, but because no one else has ever walked through a wall. So they don't even know what it is. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to teach them to even harness that ability to create something greater. So that's kind of where we are with X-Men right now, where these kids are coming in and they're showing up, and a lot of us are adults who, you know, were kids. In fact, most of us were kids. That's weird if we weren't. then it would be like that movie where the guy is like getting older, no, getting younger. What's it called? Benjamin Button. Anyway, see, my brain digresses. But so we're at that space where like all these kids are showing up and they have these amazing things to show us, but how often are we taught to ask somebody about what's going on in their world? You know, how often were you guys asked by your teachers, hey, how are you perceiving that? How are you receiving that information? If I give you this mathematical equation, are you seeing it as an image? Are you seeing it as a picture? Where does your mind go? Does it jump around in 25 different directions, or does it follow it in order? We don't really ask those questions, so we just assume that everybody should behave the way we do and think the way we do. X-Men are never going to do that. So the number one thing is get over that point of view. It's not going to happen. It's not that they don't want to. It's not that they're being difficult. They cannot. Okay, it's like trying to get a horse to be a cow. It cannot. Like, it can dress up like a cow, but it really is going to start having like some kind of crazy fit if you made it stay still, you know, chewing the same grass over. It's like this, but it's even a more exaggerated version than that. So these X-Men cannot be linear in their way of thinking. And by linear, I mean when things are in order, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For an X-Men, because they are the evolution of the species, like I mentioned, it just means that they are completely different in the way that they receive information and perceive the world. So with that, going to your question, Tully, how do you know you're an X-Men? If you're even asking that question, you're an X-Men. And also, here's the thing, like X-Men is about getting out of the definitions, because we always want to define everything in this reality. We want to define, am I this? Am I that? Is this person this? Is this person that? You know, what if it's not even about that? It's like, what if it's not? It's like, look at a humanoid. How many different kinds of humanoids are there? Oh yeah, like infinite. Are they all the same? No, the same thing with X-Men. So it's really, what if it's about actually asking yourself and the kids in your life and the adults in your life, okay, so what do you know about this? What are you perceiving here? How are you perceiving this? How are you receiving this information? On the assumption that just because you receive it a certain way doesn't mean they receive it a certain way. So that's the first thing. Like if we had no definitions even about what X-Men were, like what could that be? Because within X-Men is everything from ADD to ADHD, autism, paranoid schizophrenia, OCD, I may or may not have said, like, you know, all these different labels. And for example, I grew up in a household where pretty much most of my family had some kind of label. My father was labeled paranoid schizophrenic, and my babysitter was bipolar. My mom's best friend was also bipolar. My mom has a bunch of labels herself, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, like everybody. So I grew up thinking this was absolutely normal. I was like, oh yeah, this is just like, like how people are. And I was
just another day.
Just another day. And so, but it was a huge gift because I had to learn from a very young age, well, forever, how to connect with them in a different way and how to see how each of them, because they were each so different from each other, how each of them were receiving information, how I could engage with them, how I could communicate with them, what triggered different things in each of them. And then I was diagnosed later as an adult, high functioning autistic, but that wasn't until I was grown up. So part of this is looking at like, what if the labels that you have of anything don't have to define you as a being? And it's not saying that it's bad to be labeled, but it's also not good. It could be great and it could be not so great. It really depends what you choose with this. So just like with anything in access, what if this is just all an interesting point of view and something that you can then use to ask questions about to see what the capacities are behind it? That was like a very, very long answer to your question, Tully. Sorry.
But I love the part that where you said it could also be good, because I know that we come from a reality where being odd or not normal, like you just said, it could be something that could work for you, or it could be good, or it could be something that could be bad. But I don't think there's too many people out there who could ever look at it from the point of view, oh, this could be great. Do you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have a school friend who I mean, I've literally known her since I was 5 years old, and she was diagnosed with several things, and one of them was dyslexia. And I was used to think to myself, oh my God, if I have anything like that, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to hide it so well so no one knows that I have it. Because my my household was crazy enough as it is. I did not need any extra stuff on myself. I could barely handle the people around me. But she loved it because she would get an extra 20 minutes in every exam. So she'd be like, I got 20 minutes. Yeah. And so she was using it to her advantage. She didn't let it define her. She didn't really make it significant. She didn't really care. Obviously, that's very different than if your child is diagnosed with, autism spectrum disorder, and they are, being like harmful to themselves or something else. That's different. But what if the label is in itself just a label? It doesn't have to mean anything. I mean, 50 years ago, people were diagnosed autistic, because they thought that it was due to the mothers not giving them enough affection. After that, it was the food that they ate. More recently, it's been about vaccines. So how much do the doctors actually know about what autism really is and what these labels are? Not so much.
Not so much, yeah.
No.
The funniest
guy
is,
who even... Oh, yes, sorry, go on.
one of my closest friends is dyslexic. In fact, 3 of them are dyslexic, and they're the funniest people I have met. They have the most awesome sense of humor. When I'm with them, I cannot stop laughing.
Yeah, because, they function from such a different perspective, which is where X-Men function from. They do not function from the same fixed points of view that we all have. Sometimes it may seem that they do, because they do require sometimes a certain amount of like the idea that they have order, like a schedule or things like that. But that's just the way that they force themselves to understand what the heck it is that people are expecting from them, because they are not linear. So they basically do not function from the traditional left brain, right brain function, which is the logical mind and the creative mind. They function from a whole brain function, which means that all the information exists at the same time in simultaneity, and it doesn't have that categorization, it doesn't have that separation that everybody else functions from. So is it worse? Is it better? Or is it just different? So that's where, once you actually start to use some of these tools and start to recognize that they have a different perspective to offer us, it's not just about us getting them to be normal, then a whole universe opens up, because for the first time they are actually received by you. And what's it like when you're received by somebody? Someone who doesn't judge you, but someone who asks you, hey, what's going on for you? I know that you think that you're like a pile of crap and stuff, but like, if you just ignore that for the second, like, what's really going on? When you have someone be that with you from no judgment, what does that create for you and your world, your future, and your body? Right. So what if we can be that for the X-Men too? And that's really what this whole body of work is about. So then, in response to your question, Isha, from the person that had it online, which was, how do you start, with these kids that are having difficulty in school, get yourself to an X-Men class, really. And of course, I'm going to give you some tools in a second, but really, please do, because the X-Men classes, it's not just about one thing, it's about your entire life. So X-Men is like saying being a humanoid in the world. How many topics does that cover? Oh yeah, everything. So there's so much information. And I only kind of realized to say this out loud to people because the other day someone asked me, maybe like 2 weeks ago, like, so is X-Men like just about how to do this or how to do that? And I'm like, no. And they're like, but is it just like the money classes where you just look at money, and I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't even think the money classes are just about money, but I realize that it's about your whole life and how you engage with the world in a really different way. And the more, the more you have those tools, the easier it becomes. So with kids who have ADD and ADHD, for you guys, that's attention deficit disorder or attention hyperactive disorder. It shows up in this reality as not being able to focus like on one thing. So you basically have like everything like distracts you. What if that's actually a capacity to multitask like a crazy person? And I don't mean crazy like nuts, but I mean like an amazing ability. If you look at some of the people who've created the most amazing businesses in the world, if you look at Richard Branson, if you look at Jack Ma, do you truly think that they sat there and focused on one thing to get where they are? No, they had to have the capacity to focus on like a bajillion things at the same time. So number one is getting out of the judgment that it's wrong, even if the school system tells you it's wrong or whatever. Because when you get rid of that judgment in your universe, guess what? That X-Men is going to perceive it. they're going to perceive that you have a different space in your universe available. And is that going to create more for them or less? The
More
secret
for sure.
answer I'm hinting at is more. Exactly.
Well,
but in addition to that, what you can do with somebody who has ADD and ADHD is, rather than try and force them to focus in on one thing, start adding more sensory things going on around them. So, like for me, if I just have some emails that I've got to do, I will come up with every excuse to not do those emails. I'll be like, oh, look, I need to like wipe this corner of the chair. Oh, look, I have a split end on my hair. I need to go and deal with it. Where are the scissors? And then I go out to the shops and buy scissors. And like, I will make up anything so that I don't have to deal with those emails. However, the moment that I turn on the TV, turn on my iPad, turn on YouTube, turn on Netflix, turn on everything that I can, there is enough going on that it becomes like background noise. And I am actually having a sense of being aware of as many things as I can, that creates a sense of peace, and I can actually work. So with kids, you want to do that. If they have trouble focusing on their schoolwork, turn on music, turn on as many things as you can, so that everything that's going on becomes like a background noise. So the way that I describe it is, if you are in a room of 5 people and those 5 people start shouting, is that going to be distracting?
I'd probably calm down completely. Like,
Really? I wouldn't. I would be like, what the hell are you maniacs doing? Get out of this room. That would like distract the hell out of me. However, if you're in a stadium with 20,000 people yelling and chanting,
yeah,
is that going to be distracting? Not so much. You'll be like, all right, it's a bit loud, but I can still have this conversation, because those things aren't pulling at you so much. So that's what happens with X-Men. It's like, they are working on one thing, then their attention gets pulled over here, their attention gets pulled over here. They're actually aware of a lot of things, but each thing is yelling very intensely. Now, when you add a lot of stuff and extra noise and things in the background, what happens is that becomes background noise, just like in a stadium. But again, you want to ask questions, because it's not going to be exactly the same for everybody. For me, I'm very, very, very intensely aware of sound. So sound to me, is very physically intense. Like if somebody claps next to me, it almost hurts my brain. But if I have a room of clapping people, that doesn't hurt my brain in the same way. So I actually turn on all of those things that I just mentioned, but I turn the volume off or down to the minimum. Why? Because just that energetic activity going on is enough for me. For other people, they require more noise. I'm great at having a million things visually, just not a million things like auditorily. So ask questions like, what's going to work for this person? And it's the same for all X-Men. You want to always ask questions like, what are you perceiving, is what you want to ask the kids. What are you perceiving for anything? If they're having a tantrum, if they're, not having ease with something, okay, so what do you know in this area? And just start opening them up to the sense that they might actually be aware of something.
We have 2 questions in the chat. Should I read them out?
Yes, please. Because I think I can see them on my phone, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Vasudha is asking, how about kids who have autism, have speech issues, speech not comprehensive, and knees are affected, and they can't walk straight? A lot of energy, so they would suddenly sing very loudly, say the same thing again and again. I have a 14-year-old boy who has received 3 sessions up until now. If there is nothing to be fixed and difference is just acknowledged, how to empower them to be the gift they be while looking and behaving so different from other kids around?
Yes. I love this question. Thank you. So number one is that kids with autism are extremely aware. Like it's insane how aware they are. So they will literally be picking up on the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of everyone around them. Number one. So the moment that you go into your head, like, oh God, like they're going to do this, or they have a difficulty with this, guess what they're going to do? They're going to have a difficulty with that, because to them, that's just an instruction. It's just information they're receiving. And so they go, okay, I guess I'll do this. So number one would be to destroy and uncreate every single day all of the projections, expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections in their world about them and just poke and pod them. The second thing is that they, that's the dog, in case you didn't recognize the bark. So the other thing is to recognize that they actually communicate in their heads. So they communicate telepathically. And I kind of hate saying that word because then it gives it like this weird, like spiritual thing. Like, it's not like weird, it's not crazy. It's the same thing that we do when, say, you're sitting down somewhere and you can see that someone's coming close to you, and in your head you're like, oh, please don't come and talk to me. And then they talk to you and you're like, that's someone annoying, didn't they really? I don't want to talk to them. Yeah, they're doing that the whole time. By the way, that's you communicating telepathically. So what goes on for them is that what's faster, words or that other communication that I just mentioned that is energetic? Yeah, that other one. So they're way faster than us. I hate to tell you this. We are the idiots using words and going so slow. They're way faster than us, and they're communicating that way all the time. So for them, the words don't really make sense, because how many of the people that you know in the world are congruent energetically with what they're saying? A little, a lot, or practically like zero. Yeah, practically zero. So for them, they're like, what is going on? People going, oh, come on, you can do this. Spell the word cat. But energetically, they're going, you can't do this. I don't know how the hell you're going to do this. And I'm going to get fired. And can I just go and have a coffee? Why am I even sitting here? Can you just hurry up and show me already how you can't do this so that I can prove that I'm right with my point of view? So when those things aren't congruent, the kid is sitting there going, what in the hell does this person want from me? Okay, so that's what you have to understand. You have to start getting that we are communicating in so many ways that they are actually picking up. Okay, so it's not necessarily about getting them to start saying words, but it's about you getting clarity on what they're communicating to you in their head and energetically. And even if you ask them, okay, what do you require? And just be there with that energy, start to get a sense of it. You'll start to get a sense of it. You'll have an idea, but either way, you're going to start to create a different energetic connection with the person that isn't just based on words. So yeah, so that would be like the beginning of it. And then, of course, we go into a lot more detail in the classes. Yeah.
Is that why also before we speak out, it sounds completely different to us in our head, but when we actually say it out loud, it's completely different.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And also, it's like, you know, it's so many different things, but we place so much value. You're welcome, Vasudha. We place so much value on words and on what someone is saying, as though that means anything. Have you ever known somebody who just talks and talks, and at the end of 2 hours, you're like, wait, what was actually said? And was anything actually created? Is anything greater, or is it just moving their mouth because they can? Trump. So the point of that is
Only I heard that, so we're good.
I know, I'm sorry, you guys. I love making Trump jokes. So if you don't like Trump jokes, just don't come to any of my classes, because there will be a lot of them, okay? But so what if we actually start to use this as a chance for us to also develop our energetic communication? And this isn't like some kind of fancy, crazy concept. X-Men and kids with autism, which just means that they have a whole brain function, they basically communicate a lot more like the planet does, a lot more like wildlife. So if you look at the way that like nature is around us, and even animals or even babies before the age of 2, how much are they actually communicating energetically? A little or a lot, or like 1,000,000%? Yeah,
1,000,000%.
Exactly. Like, you know when to not go near a dog, even if it doesn't growl. You know when to not go near a dog. And you also know when it's totally okay to go and pet the dog. You know, the animals will know when there's a drought coming. They will know what to do. Like, because the planet is communicating all the time energetically. And that's what these kids are very, very much tuned into, because they do not have the insanity of this reality, which is left brain and right brain function, which is what creates linearity. They don't have that. They don't actually function from judgment. So they just function from perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving, when they're being all of them, not when they're trying to fit in. So what if this is actually a chance for them to show us a different way of being and showing up in the world? And the more that we actually are able to receive that and ask them questions about that, like, you know, what different world can we create, really? I mean, I've had kids that come to these classes that I remember I had one child in Slovenia, and he was like failing in everything in school, like literally. Like he had repeated the year and he was going to have to repeat the year again. Now, I know that this is a call with India, but if any of you guys know the European school system, you don't repeat the year. Like that doesn't exist. It exists a lot in Latin America. Like people just repeat and repeat until they pass. In Europe, you just don't. They let you pass even with the worst grades just so they can move you along the system. So the fact that this kid was like having to repeat a second time was driving him and his mom crazy. And he came to the class, and you know, he sat in the class the whole time like this. And I said to him, I was like, dude, like, relax. I'm not going to try and fix you. Like, chill out. Like, it's all good. I know that everyone wants you to be fixed. I don't have that point of view. Just like play on your iPad or something. It's all good. If you want to ask me something, I'm here. If not, like, truly, we are cool.
And you said all of this energetically.
Yeah, in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that part. So, but it's more about like being that energy, you know. So just like you know which dog not to go and touch, you know, just the way that babies also know who the person is that they can go up to and play with, and then they stay away from some people. Same kind of energy. So I was just communicating this energy of like, hey, dude, like everything's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with you. Anyway, 30 minutes before the end of the class, okay, I think we'd been together for like 6 days because it was foundation and 2 days X-Men. He asked me a question and he said, what can I do to be better in school? And I said, well, what's going on? And he said, I can't do anything. Like, I literally cannot do anything. And so I said, okay, so what do you mean by that? And he said, like, I don't understand anything. And I said, well, is it in one topic or in lots of different topics? And he said, no, nothing, from science to maths to geography to, like, I don't understand any single thing the way that they teach it. And I just cannot do it, even if I try lots of different techniques. So I asked him, okay, so I said, so just bear with me. I said, just see what makes you feel lighter and what makes you feel heavier out of what I'm asking you, okay? Let's just not try and figure this out because that's not going to work. Otherwise, it would have worked already. So he was like, okay. I think he was like 12 or 13 at the time. And so I asked him, okay, so truth, do you function very different to the other kids around you? And he stayed silent. He was like, light. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's like a yes, that's something that's true. I was like, okay, so I said, without thinking, I was like, are you faster than the kids around you? And he was like, yeah. He's like, but it seems like I'm slow. And I was like, okay, just don't go into your head. It's all good. Let's just play with it. Let's follow the energy. And he was like, okay. And I said, so how much faster would you have to go to actually have success in school? A little or lot, or like way faster? And he was like, way faster. And I was like, okay, cool. So I gave him some questions. He'd been in the class, so he had the tools of the X-Men things. And I said, is there anything else? And he was like, no. He's like, I think I got it. That's cool. I'm just different. And I'm actually way faster than everyone. Now, the reason I asked him that is because when you have a whole brain function and you don't function from a left brain and a right brain function, you don't have that same filter where you have to like put everything in an order. So you don't have to go, oh, this person said this, which then means this, which then means this. No, you receive it all at the same time. So is that faster than everyone else or slower than everyone else? It's a lot faster.
Yeah.
But because it doesn't have the order or the definitions, and sometimes you can't put it into words, because how do you put into words everything that you're aware of? It can seem to other people like you don't know. So sometimes when they go, it's because they have a lot of information rather than not enough information. So it's kind of like, you know, you will have the gift of sight, I imagine. You have, you know, you're able to see with your eyes. If you're in a room and someone says to you, like, tell me exactly right now what that room is like, what you go kind of like, oh, what, okay, like, what do you want me to describe? Like, because you're seeing all of it, right? You're seeing like so many different things. So where do you start? And what are they asking? And what words do you use? And what exactly do they want to hear? And are they testing you? Like,
it's like that question when everybody asks you, hey, describe yourself at interviews. Yeah. You're just like, where do I even begin?
Exactly. And that's what it's like for them. So they're actually way, way, way faster than most of us because they have that gift of sight, like in their whole universe where they're seeing everything at the same time. So anyway, this kid went away. This kid went away, and I didn't think anything of it. And I saw his mom a year later in Venice, and she was like, "Oh my God, like, what did you do to my son?" And I was like, "I don't know, what did I do to your son? Like, shit, what did I do?" And she was like, literally, he is not only not having to repeat the year, he is the best now, not only in the school, but in the district, and has won awards for his work in science. I was like, what? And like his whole life changed. And it's so crazy because and I think, I don't remember if it was her, I think it was another child, very, very similar situation. And the mum said to me that she had asked, this was now another child, but very similar. And she asked him, like, how are you doing this? And he said, Mum, Diva gave us all the tools in the X-Men class. What do you mean, how am I doing it? You were there. So the brilliant thing is these kids use the tools. Yeah, like they don't just know the tools and then sit at home wondering why their life isn't better because they went to a class. They actually apply the tools. It's like, I can sit there, you can come to a class, I can give you a hammer, I can give you a wrench, I can give you a screwdriver. Those are pretty much all the tools that I know. I don't know the names of any other tools. I actually don't even know what a wrench is. But
a woman who drinks a lot.
But if you leave that class and you never use those tools, nothing's going to happen, you know. And it's the same with this. So would you be willing to actually start applying these tools? If you just use one tool and you make that the tool that you use for the week or for the day, start applying it and start applying the questions like, what do I know here? Like, if I wasn't wrong here, if I wasn't disabled in this area, like, what do I know?
Okay. There's a couple of more questions, but that was so cool. Man, I love that story. That kid is so cool. Seema saying, I have a question. How can schizophrenic, I guess labeled schizophrenic, use their X-Men capacity to their advantage? And what exactly is that ability?
Yeah, that is something that we cover in the 2-day class. So I would invite you to come to that class. This, like, there's a certain, like for the 2-day class, we have foundation as a prereq or a new 1-day class that we've just launched. And the reason for that is that there's just a lot of information in the X-Men stuff. The first thing, as always, is asking questions. And one of the main questions that you're going to want to ask an X-Men is, what do you know, and is this yours? Who does this belong to? Literally saved my life. And you think I'm joking when I say that? I'm not joking. Like, literally saved my life. I remember once I called Gary, which I'm sure you guys all know, he's the founder of Access Consciousness. And I called him and I was like whining about something. I was like, my mama, and my life is this, and I'm terrible. And he was like, okay, good. He's like, so have you used the tool, who does this belong to, for 3 days? I was like, yes, Gary, I've used it like on 5 different occasions for 3 days. And he was like, okay, great. So everyone needs to really use that tool for 3 days. You need to do it for 6 months. I was like, that is not what I was expecting you to say. So I took on the challenge and I literally used who does this belong to for 6 months for every thought, feeling, and emotion. I'm not going to say that it was the easiest thing, because it wasn't. That's one of the hardest things I've done in my life, but it's also one of the things that has given me the most freedom, because by the end of that time, I literally have not ever been stuck by anything that isn't mine in the same way. So I highly recommend that you guys use that tool. Yeah, I love it. Oprah, it's like, now I know it hasn't worked for me for 3 days. Yeah, you might need to use it a lot more, because when your level of awareness is so heightened and you're so aware of so many people all the time, it does take a little while to unravel that. You know, how often do we want like the one quick tool, the one answer that's going to be like, oh, that's the thing. Okay, great. Now everything's perfect. This is kind of like going to the gym. If you go once, it's not really going to do much. If you go consistently, it's going to do a lot. You know, it's like, do you eat once and then that's it? You've eaten for your whole lifetime? No, You eat when you require it, when you want it. Same with the tools. So what if you really add this as part of your lifestyle? And who does this belong to is going to be one of the main tools to use for an X-Men. And also, is this yours? And if it's a child, you can kind of like yell it at them energetically, like when they're acting crazy or when they're really acting like they're not them. Ask and even ask them, hey, is this yours? Who are you being right now? Okay, so you can use that question as well with schizophrenia, but I highly, highly recommend the 2-day class to go and get the information for that. It's all super easy to handle. It's just something that we talk about in the classes.
So just curious, when are your next classes?
I actually have a class coming up next week in Australia, and it's going to be live streamed. It's the only live stream class that I'm doing this year now. So you guys can join it online if you would like. And it's on Zoom just like this, so you guys will be on camera. You can ask your questions, and the prerequisites foundation for that class.
Super. Is the coming weekend, is it?
Yes. So not this coming weekend, the one after.
Okay, so like
10 days.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We have one more question in the chat.
Sure.
Vasudha is asking, so when moms get kids whose speech walk is very different, what do we tell them they expect out of bars, body process, and verbal tools? Also, when they can't sleep and would want to sing loudly in the middle of the night or dance, things that would disturb others in the house. Usually, educators who work with kids considered special in India go for physiotherapy, hand motor coordination exercises. Are these a contribution or just forcing X-Men to fit in the box so others are not inconvenienced?
Yeah, pretty much. Forcing them to fit in the box. Ask them questions. Like, one of the things that happens is that a lot of X-Men look to the people around them to see how they should be with their bodies. So when you have those hand, whatever limb coordination movements that are like seem a bit strange or like they're not really like flowing, often it's because they're mimicking their parents or the people around them, and they're looking into their world and thinking, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to move? How am I supposed to walk or whatever? So this is where doing the classes is going to be a huge help, because you're going to get a lot more information to deal with that. And the other thing is, what was the first thing you said? That they do what when they're asleep?
When they can't sleep but want to sing loudly in the middle of the night or dance.
Oh, yeah. Then I suggest the rest of the household get happy and that they stand up and start dancing too.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, fine. I'll give you a solution. So one other thing you can do is you can, because what's most likely happening is that they're picking up everyone's thoughts from miles and miles and miles around, which is also often why they will not go to sleep at night. My mother gave up on making me go to sleep when I was like 6, I think. So I would go to sleep at like 2 a.m. at least, like for my whole life, because I couldn't sleep earlier. So you could ask them, hey, like, is this yours? But the other really, really cool tool is to put like almost like a cocoon of light around them that is orange, like red with a tint of orange. So not like blue red, but like orangey red, purple and blue. So you just put it around them. You just kind of like go bloop energetically. You can do it from a distance. Obviously, you don't need to be there like with your hand or anything. And that actually lessens the impact of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions in their world. So I even do that for myself. Like when I go out into like really intense cities or things, if I'm like, oh, everything is so loud, then I'll put that cocoon of energy around me, because that does actually lessen the impact of all of that stuff. So I also do it when I can't sleep at night. I had a lady who came to a class that I did in Australia a few years ago, and her daughter, who was about 7 at the time, had never slept one full night, like in her life. Like if you saw this mother, literally she had like crazy bags under her eyes. I thought that she was like sick or something, but then when she told me that it's just that they didn't sleep, then I got it. And so she was like, please help me, because her kid was always waking up with nightmares and not being able to sleep and being scared and, you know, seeing things in the room and all of this stuff. And as well talking, like, and kind of half asleep, but talking, like, it was just like really full on for the whole family. And so I just gave her that tool. I said, listen, tonight, just try this, see how it goes. Put the cocoon of red, purple, and blue around her, because that's going to lessen the impact of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of everyone around her. They came to me the next day in class, and the mum was crying. And she said that the little girl, age 7, woke her up. So they were asleep, woke her up saying, Mummy, for the first night I slept and I didn't see the bad men in my dreams. And the little girl, age 7, was crying from happiness when she went to see her mother. So anyway, by the end of this conversation, we were all crying and I was crying too. But it was amazing because these tools literally work, but you have to use them. You have to use them. Use the tools. Don't just know them, use them. Yes.
Hi, Diva.
Hello.
So there's a question from the mail. What are my X traits and am I too ahead of time to receive them? Where is my audience? So this is a question from Swati from Delhi.
Yes. So X traits just means like X abilities. What I would start doing is, first of all, for every single thing that you think is wrong about you or messed up about you, I can assure you that is going to be your biggest capacity. Why? Because we have twisted everything that we are capable of into some of our biggest limitations, just so that we don't have to be us and show up in the world. So for everything that you think you're messed up about, whether it's making money, whether it's running a business, whether it's that you're judging everyone the whole time and you just can't help but hate everyone, ask, what is the capacity here? What is the capacity here that I'm not acknowledging? If this wasn't a wrongness, what am I actually aware of here? What do I know here? What am I capable of here? What is my ability here? And keep asking that question. Don't expect an answer, but allow that to start to energetically shift in your world. Because if you try and change anything out of judgment because you've decided it's wrong, is that thing actually able to change? No. You have to get out of judgment first before you can create a change in anything. So step number 1 is, if I wasn't judging this, if this wasn't a problem, what is it truly? And what if this wrongness is actually a strongness? Like, what would the strongness be? And start asking that to get a sense of what your capacities are. Because the fact is, these are capacities that we all have access to. It's literally just a choice to choose them. And I know it's annoying when people say it's just a choice, like, and I get it. Like, I even find myself annoying when I say that. But it really is, it's actually a choice, and not like, oh, it's just a choice, choose it. I don't mean that like in that judgy way. I mean that in the sense of, choose to get out of judgment of you as much as possible. And that's when what's brilliant about you will show up, because you're not holding it down by the heaviness and the lies of this reality. You're actually just letting that go, and the space is there for that stuff to then start to come out.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So where exactly is your class in Australia? Which city?
It's in Noosa.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's in Noosa. And then I have another one coming up the first weekend of September. We also have Jenny B and Cara White that do the 2-day classes. So check out their pages as well on the Access website. Just check out the X-Men stuff, because you have all the facilitators there. We have a ton of intro facilitators, which is really cool, because they do general intros, but they also do like X-Men and money, X-Men and bodies, you know, so they really dive deep into some of these areas. So that's a great chance for you guys to get like a taste of it in a very detailed area. And they're going to soon be doing 1-day classes too.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
You're welcome. Oh, somebody's sharing their screen. How exciting. What are you going to show us? One other thing is, if you guys do want to find out more, I have a free ebook that you can check out, and it's on xmenabilities.com, and it's free. So it's an ebook. How else can I describe it? An ebook that's free. But it's called The Abilities You Didn't Know You Had. So it really gives you like an insight and some tools and questions in there too. And it's great to suggest that to people who maybe don't do Access, but you kind of want to give them some tools and you're perhaps not too sure how to explain it. Just send them there, they can download it. I really wrote that for people who know no Access. So I'm not doing crazy Access speak. I'm not being like, what are you perceiving with the beings? Like, I'm not doing any of that. It's just like a regular person talking, giving some really pragmatic tools, which is the way that I see Access anyway. So if you want to recommend that to people, please do, because I know that it's created a lot for people who wouldn't necessarily be into self-development or whatever, but they have started to use the questions with their kids.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you can go up with a replay. So when we send out a replay, we'll send out probably a link to that as well.
Cool.
I think we have space for one last question. There's one here in the chat. Rekha's written, as you said earlier, autistic people are not as good with words. They get the whole picture. So as an autistic person, it's always difficult for me to listen to other people's words. What question can I ask to be totally present with the conversation and with the person? How can I have ease with this? Sometimes it's necessary to listen if somebody is giving you work or instructions.
Yeah. So first of all, just to clarify, I didn't say they weren't good with words. I just said that they don't always choose to use words because words are so slow. So just for you, what if it's not that you're not good with words? What if it's that you're actually great with words, just not the way that other people are? Okay. Because what we tend to do is we tend to look for how other people do stuff to then see if we fit, if we're doing it the right way, the wrong way. What is your unique way of being with words and describing things? One question that I have always asked myself, because I mean, I even studied like medieval literature in university, like as an autistic person studying literature, writing a lot of essays, using words, getting things in order. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but it was very easy because I was always asking myself, how succinct can I be here? So ask yourself, all right, how succinct can I be here? And when somebody is talking, ask in your head to the person, what's your point? Because when you do that, you're directing this energy of what is the purpose here? Like, what is the point you're trying to come to? And they will usually deliver that, or you will pick it up. People like to do a lot of talking to say absolutely nothing, or they like to talk for 30 minutes to say one thing 30 times in 30 different ways, but it's the same thing. So ask yourself, what am I aware of? What information here is relevant? What information here do I need to recall? And yeah, ask like, what is this person actually communicating? And just be aware that sometimes it's not going to be, the energy isn't going to be congruent with what they're saying. So ask yourself, okay, so what am I aware of? Are they congruent with what they're saying? Okay, do they want me to believe that they're congruent with what they're saying? Okay, then I believe that you're going to do this. Don't discount your awareness, and just know that they may not even be aware that they're not congruent with what they're speaking, but don't let it turn into you having a disability in that area, because that's just not true, which is why it's heavy. It's not heavy because you're so limited. It's not heavy because it's not true, you guys, okay? So everything that you guys think is so wrong with you because it's so heavy and it's so stuck. What if it's not that at all? What if it's heavy because it's a lie and it's not true? And you're not limited in that area. Okay, so yeah. Everywhere that you feel that you're wrong or that you don't know how to do stuff, ask, okay, so what do I know here? How much information am I actually picking up? Because no one teaches us what to do with this information. No one says, hey, you're picking up a lot of information. You don't need to do anything with it. Okay, just because you're aware of everything or a million things doesn't mean you need to do anything with all of it. When you walk down the street and you see a million things, do you try and go and handle all of those things? Do you try and handle the trees and the cars and the birds and the grass and the homeless person and the chicken that's running loose? No, you just allow yourself to see it and you continue with your day. What if you're like that with your awareness too? Okay.
So there's one more question from Preet. She says, my son is 3.5 years old and he hits a lot. I use energy pulse. He hits. He hits, yeah. She said, she says, I use energy pulse. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So what questions can I ask here to deal with it, and what's going on with him?
You're welcome, Rika. So several things, and again, please get yourself to a class. because that's where we can look at these things in a lot more detail. And I'm not saying that to try and sell the classes, but I really mean, like, because there's information, but then we can look at each person individually and ask a lot more specific questions, okay? For him, I would ask him, hey, who are you being right now? Who are you being? Who is angry that you're aware of? And what is this? The other thing is, these kids are so fast that you have to energetically be faster than them. So you know how, like, I don't know if any of you guys have like ridden horses very much. I only really started riding horses when I started Access, but one thing that happens with a horse is you can perceive when it's about to do something naughty. It's about to do something it's not supposed to do. You have to be faster than it to catch that energetic thing. Go, hey. With these kids, it's quite similar. They are amazing manipulators. They're going to try and get away with stuff, usually because they're just bored and they don't understand what the heck anybody is expecting from them. So right before he starts to be that energy of hitting, ask yourself to become aware of it. And you have to be willing to be the killing energy and say, no, you don't do that. You do not get to do that. What is going on? Okay. You may think that sounds mean or whatever, but let me tell you, I worked with this 18-year-old girl who was nonverbal. So she basically stopped speaking at the age of 2. So you can imagine like how developed her vocabulary was, not very much. And she used to like, she had like, her parents had built like this whole therapy center for her in their house. And she had therapy in there every single day for every single thing. She was nonverbal. She really just didn't have like any of the skills that would allow her to be independent at all. So I went to work with her, and one of the things that happened was during our session at one point, energetically, I perceived that she was about to stand up and try and hit me. So I was just faster than her, and energetically I went, no, like, no way, you do not get to do that with me. Energetically, I didn't have to yell, I didn't have to be forceful, but just the way, like, imagine if you're with a child and they're about to run in front of a car. What energy would you be? You'd be like, hey, stop, or you'd grab them. But that energy, that's the killing energy of like, no, this is not happening. That's the energy that I was with her. So she didn't actually hit me. She didn't try to. She just backed down. Why? Because we were communicating energetically. Now, I thought that was normal because that's just how I have always dealt with that in my life, even in my household, growing up. And then when I came out, I didn't realize that the parents sneakily had been filming the whole session with me and their daughter, and they'd seen like everything. I know. And they said to me, we are so astonished. You are the only therapist she has seen in her entire 18 years that she hasn't either punched, smacked in the face, or bitten. How did you do it? And I was like, wow. I couldn't even describe it to them. I just said to them, I was just really just the vibe of don't you dare. Like, don't you dare do that with me. That is not acceptable on any level. I'm here for you and I'm here to contribute to you. Wow. And you need to actually be willing to receive this. Otherwise, I'm going and I do not care. Like, your parents are the ones that brought me here. You want to play or no? And it was really that energy. So you have to be willing to be that demand as well. That doesn't mean make the kid wrong, like, oh, you're bad, you're doing this. No, but be willing to be that energy of like, hey, that's not okay. And what are you aware of? Like, who is so mad right now that you're picking up on? What is this? Who are you being right now? And keep asking questions until the energy starts to shift in their world, because they may not even know that they're aware of someone else. We've all had that. You've all been happy in your home until you get a phone call from that person who's really depressed. And after 5 minutes, you just want to kill yourself or have like a 5-day nap. It's that you're perceiving that person's universe. And these kids have a very, very extreme version of that, but no one's telling them that that's what it is. So what if you can be the person that's giving them that information by asking them the questions?
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that we're about top of the hour. If you guys still have questions for Diva, I'm sure you guys can they write into you, honey, or something?
Absolutely. Please do. Please. You can email me at diva@accessconsciousness.com or info@Diva Diaz. Actually, info@Diva Diaz is better, because then my amazing crew that works with me, they get those emails too. It doesn't mean they'll answer them for me, but they will harass me until I answer you, which is very good because I'm often traveling. So it means I won't miss your email. Jenny, who is the amazing woman that works with me, she will make sure that I answer your email. So send it to info@divadiaz.com. Otherwise, I'll start answering it, then I'll get distracted, and then the internet will cut out, and then I'll fly on a plane, and then I'll remember 2 months later.
All X-Men on it, basically.
Exactly. Oh, thank you so much, everybody, for all of your comments. I'm so grateful, and thank you really for being willing to have this conversation, because I know it's a conversation that there are a lot of projections about this in the world, including the projection of why should I care, and this is probably not relevant to me. You know, I used to think that too. I used to be like, what is going on? But the more that I heard Gary Douglas talk about X-Men and explain like how they function from a non-linear reality, the more I realized that actually these tools with regards to X-Men, when I apply them to business, when I apply them to money, when I apply them to leading teams of people, when I apply them to my life, when I apply them to my body, it allows me to create in the way that I have always known I should be able to create, but I couldn't quite get to because I was still looking to see how other people did it. So if that's something that interests you, please check out the X-Men stuff. We have so much free stuff online. I do a weekly Facebook Live every Tuesday, so you can check that out as well on X-Men Abilities on Facebook, and they're super interactive. You can ask questions on there too.
Yeah, it's really interactive, and I really like watching those FB lives that you do. They're so fun.
Thank you.
And you're in all these nice locations, so it's always like, oh, where is she at now?
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for inviting me on this call. Thank you, really.
Thank you for being here.
See you all soon.
Bye, guys, and see you next month.
Thank you, Diva.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.